We'll talk about defense.
Secretary Gates talked about cutting defense.
Yeah, and I was very pleased to hear him say that, because we need to have a Secretary of Defense talk about waste, fraud, and abuse in defense, the fact that Cold War era weapon systems are continuing to be built. We don't need those. We're in a time now of asymmetrical warfare. I mean, we need to have a new military that's appropriate for the world in which we live, and I think much of that budget goes for the Cold War era, which we're not in.
What's been your toughest vote?
Of course, my toughest vote was right after the horrific tragedy of 9/11.
You were
3
the only
days
person
later.
to oppose.
Yeah, I was the only person to oppose, and it was a very difficult vote to cast. But when you look at that resolution, Charlie, and when you read it, it was a blank check. It said the president, this is any president, is authorized to use force against any nation, organization, individual connected to 9/11. That was a broad blank check. That set the basis for not only Afghanistan, we didn't even know Afghanistan at the moment of that vote, but also Iraq and anywhere else. So I'm trying to repeal that authorization. This has been the longest war in American history, 10 years. And I knew then that it was going to create more anger and more hostility. And that's not the way we should address global peace and security.
As you know, when then State Senator Barack Obama from Illinois came out against the war in Iraq and the invasion of Iraq, he made a clear point saying, I want everybody to know I'm not against all wars. I believe there are just wars. And you say the same thing.
There are just wars, but I don't believe that what we have done with regard to Afghanistan is what I would categorize as a just war.
Even if it was only in response to Al Qaeda, you don't think it would have been a just war?
But even
Al Qaeda, which was located and that was originated from Afghanistan.
But we'd have to declare war then, Charlie. That the Congress would have to declare war, and we would have to understand exactly what we were doing, going after Al-Qaeda and responding appropriately. I don't believe we need to give any president the authority to use force or to go to war anywhere, ever. I think that's our responsibility, and we did not do that, and here we are 10 years later.
But on this situation, you talked of your admiration for the president.
I do.
You're at a very different place than the president on this, on Afghanistan, because he says almost it's compared to Iraq, which has sort of been the bad war. He believes that the war in Afghanistan is necessary.
He said that during the campaign, and I disagreed with him on that. And every time I hear it, I flinched. But I understand what he's saying. I did not believe that. I think that we need to get out by 2011, by the deadlines, first of all, that he established.
Well, he's even recently announced that in Secretary Gates that they would begin in a small way to leave some people, small amount of people, I assume, in July of this year.
But I don't agree with that. And
you think they should all leave by July?
I think they should all leave, or at least begin to leave in a big way. We're working, and let me tell you, I have my resolution that I'm building support for, Republican and Democratic support, to say no more funding for combat operation. The only funding that we're going to provide will be to protect our troops and contractors and to bring them home. Enough is enough. The generals are going to tell us it's going good, we need more money, more troops. Or they're going to say it's going bad. We need more money, more troops. Either way, we need to get out.
And we should never listen to the generals?
We should always listen to the generals as a part of a decision-making
but clearly
process.
That's what the president did. I mean, he had the generals and he had a series of civilian advisors in making the decisions about Afghanistan.
Sure.
It wasn't just the generals, and he quizzed them over that long period
but
with a certain rigor to find out and to make up his own mind as to how to go forward.
Yeah, but in many ways, and I have to say this, I see much of the previous administration's policies in play. I don't believe that this administration has completely shifted direction in Afghanistan. And I'm going to say this. Even the administration has said that there are very few members of of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan.
The director of the CIA said that in testimony before Congress.
Yeah,
probably
and
less than 100.
It's like, what are we there? I mean, Al-Qaeda is in caves.
Well, we're there because they worry that if, in fact, the Taliban comes back, they'll offer safe haven and Al-Qaeda will come back.
The Taliban live in Afghanistan. They're going to be there. Yeah. And so if we don't figure out a way to move forward in some type of arrangement that's going to help stabilize the country and ensure that we at least support some form of economic development in Afghanistan, I don't believe it's a win-win for us at all. And I think the quicker we realize that, the better shape we'll be in terms of our national security, because the longer we're there, the more anger is going to be created and the more terrorism, you know, I mean, people are going to talk about it, and the region is going to be very volatile, and you don't want to see more anger and more hostility toward the United States. And
well,
I think
well, clearly that's true, but I mean, there's some reason to believe some of that has changed as well, and the president is grappling with that now in terms of what to do about Libya, and believing that if he identifies with some of the forces that are bringing about change in the Middle East, that will in fact give the United States
and I think
a new definition with respect to the Middle East. I know you think that, but let me come back to Afghanistan. And because of this, you are very, very concerned about women's issues across the board.
That's right.
There's no group that has been more hostile to women's issues than the Taliban.
That's right.
And I would think that you would want to do everything you could on behalf of the women in Afghanistan to resist Taliban coming back.
I do want to do everything I can, and I am. However, the Taliban is going to be there. That's their country. We have to work with women, and we have to ensure that our foreign aid and the work that we do here in the United States support women's movements and figure out a way to ensure that women are liberated from the Taliban. I want the women of Afghanistan. I want to support the women of Afghanistan, and I don't want to see any backsliding. But the women will tell you now, the security concerns are enormous in Afghanistan. And the presence of United States troops...
They're better off now than they were when the Taliban was in power. They would also tell you.
But we're not... If we stay there another 10, 15, 20 years, the cost, first of all, I think we can do this, and I think we can do it.
Do what?
Help the women of Afghanistan, help stabilize Afghanistan, and make sure that our troops come home and aren't at risk of being shot and killed. I think there are ways, and I think our Defense Department knows how to do this. But I think we have to take out U.S. troops first before we can do anything. Regional stability is extremely important, and you have to bring in the region and talk about how you move forward. But that means our troops have to get out. And the costs, in addition to human costs, you look at the dollars, the trillions of dollars are going to be spent, Afghanistan and Iraq. We've got to create jobs here at home and stabilize this economy. And as long as these wars are going on, that's not going to happen.
You want to present legislation to the Congress to withdraw funding or to cut off any future funding?
I want to cut off any future funding for combat operations in Afghanistan. I want funding there to protect the troops. Anything they need, they performed well. They should be supported. So whatever it takes to protect the troops and to support the troops, we need to fund, as well as the contractors. But we need to fence this funding in. And we need to do that and then use the funding, whatever we appropriate, to begin a withdrawal. And we need to do that quickly. Not a few troops in 2011, but we need to begin a massive drawdown as quickly as possible.
What do you think of Secretary Gates?
I think he's been very bold, and I think that he's made some statements and tried to help move the direction of our military policy in a new way. And, he's going to retire. And, I think his retirement is going to give us a chance really to look at shifting gears.
Right.
But I also think, he helped stabilize this administration. I think he's been, a good secretary.
Okay. You have raised questions as to whether we should be part of a no-fly zone over Libya. What are your concerns there? Or are you trying to sort of restrict from doing that if, in fact, he thinks it's in the national interest?
Whatever takes place, he should come to Congress, I think, especially if we're contemplating a no-fly zone.
Oh, really? That should be voted on by Congress?
Oh, heavens, yes, because and I think Secretary Gates, again, said, we have to consider the implications of war.
Can you imagine circumstances in which you would want, on behalf of the sort of the people who are in fact protesting with all the kinds of principles that you believe in? Freedom, democracy, better economic benefits that will spread throughout the populace. All those things are things that have been the passion of your life. Why shouldn't we help those people?
Well, we should help them, but I think a no-fly zone and go into war, which in essence that could happen, would create the opposite effect. This movement that's taking place in Libya and throughout the Middle East, it's a grassroots movement. It's a movement of people the United States cannot be seen, I don't believe, as being heavy-handed.
Well, they don't want that either.
in that.
But I'm
You
saying,
have